guys, welcome to Next Level You. Today we are talking with LaVeda Johnson and her husband, Alvin Johnson. LaVeda's story is one of inspiration. It's called My Forever Story, and it's about her journey to love and forever, her journey of believing and standing on the promises of God. And in the article, we talk quite a bit about her outlook on marriage and the work that she did for herself and on herself as she made her way towards her forever love. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to introduce you guys, LaVeda and Alvin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
So let's talk about a little bit about the article and some of the things that you talked about in the article. And I don't want to ruin it for the people who haven't read it, but I do want to I want to hit a couple of points. As you started your journey, when you fully started your journey, I think you said you was probably about 40 or so, or maybe.
When I say my journey, I think it was more a relationship with God. I started to read my Bible more. That relationship, having an actual true relationship. When we grow up, you go to church and, you hear the pastor, but preaching, but you hear the actual words. Do you take it in? Do you really take in the word and the knowledge? And so at that point in time, I mean, prior to that, I knew God, I knew to pray, but I didn't know about the relationship, to have with him. So I'm going to say around 40 is when everything really changed in me to say, you know what? I need to let this go. I can't do everything on my own.
Yeah. And let's take a step back, because we were in the article, you talk about how it was after, I'm not going to call them failed engagements, but after you had been engaged three times and they did not go all the way through. And I think there is no fail. It's just a lesson.
Definitely.
And that step for the next level.
Exactly.
But it was after that third one that you began to, I think we talked about how you begin to say, okay, there's a problem. And you started work physically trying to change yourself to figure out what the problem was. And eventually you realized, you said that it wasn't a physical problem. It was a more deeper problem.
Right. So, and I can, put that description. Don't quote me, but I know it's in Peter. But I know it says, do not let your external be a journey. So I took that in. That was one of the first things I remember, where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to change my looks. I'm trying to, fit in this society of what beauty is supposed to be. And then at that time for that individual, because, he was much younger and, I'm just trying to fit into, okay, is he gonna like younger women? Like I need to fix myself, external. So that's where I realized this is not it. It doesn't matter.
So how did you get to that point? How did you get to that point where you were like, it's not the physical? How did you get to that point where it was more eternal? And more than that, how did you get to the point where it's a God thing?
Well, because it was a lust thing. It was not, you can, people throw around the word love. But I had to realize, is there a connection? Where do we really, what do we agree on? Where are we going in our lives? Are we doing this together or separate? And there was just no togetherness. There was no union. It was like, I was doing my own thing and they were doing their own thing. And it's just like, you didn't see an end. You didn't see the togetherness. Yeah. And I'm like, that's what I wanted. That's what I desired.
You were looking for a connection.
A union. Yeah.
Okay.
A connection. Yeah. I wanted to go all in with somebody who's going to be beside me and I'm beside them and we're loyal to each other. We're going to stick this out. And I didn't have that.
So that sent you, I call it a crossroads. And I think in the article, we talk about this crossroads in this place where you were in, where you started looking more inwardly and saying, I need to do something about myself first. And in the article, which I found very interesting, in the article you talk about, I want to get into a little bit about this journey. And Alvin, we get into you in just a second. But you talk about how while you were in the middle of this journey of rediscovering and connecting yourself with God, how you didn't date for over 2 years. But tell us a little bit about some of what you did as far as your progression in connecting yourself and finding God. For some people who don't even know, like, how did you find them, and what type of things did you do, and how that came about?
Well, for one, I had to. You know how you're with someone, and you're like, oh, they did this and they did that, and you never really look inward and say, okay, what, is there something wrong with me? And I'm sure a lot of people have that question, what's wrong with me? What did I do? So I had to take a step back and say, okay, let me find out what I'm doing and how I can fix myself. But then also, God, I'm tired of doing this by myself. I'm just repeating or
just
recycling
the same relationships.
I know I told my husband, but I had this dream when I was bless my grandma's soul. I had a dream, and I'm literally in this car, and I'm just circling. I'm in this dream, and I'm like, why am I going around in circles? And in the dream, and unfortunately she was there, but in the dream she said, you're just doing the same thing. And it was like, she was talking like, and so of course, that is a familiar spirit, but I started praying to God, and I'm like, God, I am repeating myself. I'm not doing anything different. I'm in the same relationships, the same problems,
just different people,
same
problem.
Yeah, just different people. And I'm like, what can I do? So I said, you know what? I'm gonna sit back. I'm gonna take some time for myself. I'm just gonna stop. I stopped wanting to be in the world, period. And this is just my, my journey.
And when you say in the world, what exactly do you mean?
When I say in the world, because there was times where I was in the clubs, I was partying, I was drinking, people say, enjoying life, free spirit, and you don't want to put yourself in that category, but I was. I had to also be true to myself. Like, who am I? What legacy am I gonna leave behind? What example am I giving my son? How do other people see me? So I started asking those questions. I would ask my sisters. I would say, describe, what are my characteristics? Tell me what are my characteristics? What do you see? And they were like, well, you can be aggressive. You can be, and I'm like, tell me the truth. Excuse me. Like, tell me the truth. Tell me what you see. When, I wanted an outlook of what other people thought about me, at you, or when they engaged in me, had the conversations. I wanted to know. And I started saying, oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Because that was never your intent. and of course, we always see ourselves totally
different. Yeah.
And you, especially in relationships, you think, oh, I'm good.
Right. It's not me.
It ain't me. My math ain't fly.
Right. I'm not doing that. Yes,
they the problem.
Right. They the problem.
And then all of a sudden that mirror come up, you like, oh.
Right.
Well, maybe I ain't as cute as I thought I was.
Exactly. So I took the time where I literally worked out. So my thing was, I wanted to be for one, spiritually prepared. I wanted to make sure I had that relationship first with God. Okay. I wanted to make sure I wanted to hear God. I wanted him to speak to me. And I asked for the Holy Spirit. Okay. I asked him, like, God, bring your Holy Spirit in me. I want to feel you. I want to hear you. I want to love you. I never had that relationship where I say, I'm like, God loves me, but I want to love God. Yeah. You know what I mean? I wanted to say, God, I love you. I love you. And it just becomes, and I started reading my Bible now, and I still struggle with remembering scriptures. But, and I asked, I started talking to God, just like you would talk to a friend or anyone. I started talking to God. I just started talking to him, saying, hey God, this is my problems. This, when people think of prayer, they're thinking like, oh, Holy Spirit, hallelujah, it's having a conversation with God. And I'm like, he already knows me.
Thank you. he already knows what's going on.
I'm not sure, he already know what I've done, what I've been through, and where I'm going. He knows everything about me. Yeah. So I can't hide. I might as well just have that honest conversation and be honest with myself. And then I had to start forgiving myself on all the bad, all the,
and that's one of the hardest things.
Very hard.
It's so easy to forgive others.
It is. Well, that's hard too.
That's hard. I found, always that it was so easy for me to forgive somebody else for something that they did to me, as opposed to me forgiving myself for the abuse that I did to myself. That was a really hard thing for me. And how did you go about forgiving yourself?
Oh man, I know I cried a lot.
You had to purify yourself.
I had to purge. I purged. I fast. I prayed. I read my Bible. I really spent a lot of alone time, just starting to really like LaVeda. I would think about that little girl. Yeah. Everything that she been through. Everything that all the just everything that's happened in my life. I had to think about that little girl and everything that she accomplished, all the goals she set, being proud of her. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I think I like LaVeda a little bit. I'm coming around, and I liked being by myself. And that was really my problem.
Really?
Being alone, just being alone. I had a problem with just sitting down and being alone by myself because I didn't like myself by myself. I needed some validation.
That's huge.
Right.
That's huge.
Right.
And in the article, you talk about how you were talking to God, and God began to talk back to you in the same period of time. Yes. And you said that he made you a promise. What was that promise that he made?
He promised, like he said, I will, if you ask, I will give it to you. Just ask and have faith in me. I will give it to you. And I'm like, am I talking to myself?
And answering myself. Like, is this all made up in my head?
I'm like, God, is that you? Am I talking about myself? I mean, I would even talk to my sister. I'm like, sometimes I don't know if I'm talking about myself. She's like, no, girl.
And that's one of the things people are always challenged with hearing God's voice. Right. And one of the things that I always remind people, God will never tell you anything contrary to his word. That's right. That's how you can always tell who he is. That's right. And you can distinguish his voice from other voices. Right. And so you had started to get into his word, so you learned what he sounded like, learned what his character was, the type of words that he used. And he's never going to tell you anything negative. Even his no is not a negative. That's right. You know what I'm saying? And so you can recognize it when you start feeling like, am I crazy?
Right.
And then you just test it. God never tells us anything contrary to his word. Right. And so you have this promise of what it is, because you're really searching. You're searching for that connection. Yes. And you have this promise, and you've done this work, and you've been sitting, and we're going to come right back to you. But Alvin, so I believe, I really do. I believe in what I call the climb. Mm-hmm. And I believe that as we're on our journey and we're climbing, going to the next level. Next level. As we're climbing, going to the next level, there's somebody climbing at the same time, and we can't see them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so you know in this moment and in this time you're doing this work. Right. But little do you know, on the other side of the mountain that you're going up, Alvin is climbing. So and I know you guys have talked about this and stuff, so we're just gonna get a little bit into y'all business. What type of things were you doing at this time or in your life preparing you for your forever?
Well, mine was a little different. I was married prior, for almost 20 years with somebody, and then divorced. And so mine was my climb was basically self-reflection, number one. Number two, it was being the best version of me. And by getting to that place, I had to do reflection on my life, my spiritual walk.
So were you doing some of the same things, or was your spiritual walk already tight and you tightened it, or was it, and I'm not going to say Vita was non-existent, but she was over there.
Mine was existent. There was some there, but I had allowed the person that I was married to take things out of me that God put in me that she didn't give me. And I allowed her to take those things. And so my climb was preparation of God restoring those things back in me.
Oh,
and
we're
so
gonna do a whole article on that. I like that so much. Oh, that's deep.
Yeah. So as God started to restore those things back in me, it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't for marriage at the time.
Really?
It was just being the best version of me that I can be. And again, like her, I got 3 children, and so just them being an image for them. And so I felt like, okay, God is building me for to be a great father and to be just the best me I can be, best son, best brother. And so I think he was building me for that. And so that's what my climb was.
Wow. Because one of the questions, one of the things Vita says in her article is that she had to prepare herself to become a wife, because, and I want you to talk about that just a little bit, because we ask for a lot of things, but we're not necessarily prepared for those things. Right. And one of the things that you said you had to do, well, there were a couple of things that you talk about that you had to do, which is one of them led to your ability to see and hear Alvin, was you said that you had to learn how to cook, because you didn't cook.
I did cook. I did cook. I did not. I did not.
You said you had to, I remember you saying you had to learn how to not be so selfish and self-absorbed with yourself, and you learned how to listen.
Yes, that was a major thing.
How did you even realize that you didn't listen?
I think when, as I was self-reflecting, you just, I guess what I was doing, I was writing down things that I was hearing from, I told you, from my sisters and just from friends and anyone that I asked, hey, what do you think I could work on? What do you, how do we interact? And so one of the things that was told me was like, Vita, you overtalk people. And I was like, oh. And I was like, And so of course I realized, I'm like, you know what, maybe I do overtalk people.
Oh wow.
So I'm like, I'm going to give people the opportunity to speak, and I'm going to clearly listen to them instead of them trying to hear me. So and that was a real big thing that I heard from a few individuals. So I said, you know what? That's, kind of top 5. So I'm going to concentrate on that. Oh. Let me concentrate on that. Let me concentrate on, listening and hearing. That was my main thing. And most of the time, as women, and I'm not saying all women, let me just say, not say all women, but sometimes, we want men to hear us. We want to, okay, this is how I feel. This is what I want. This is, what I need. But we also have to make sure we hear them too. Yes. And their needs and their wants. And, so it has to be equal.
So, and along those lines, Alvin, because you were in this space and you were doing a lot of self-work and self-reflection, what is one of the biggest things that you realized you had to, because you were already a husband, you already had the mindset and the spirit of, but your life changed significantly, and you're learning more about yourself and restoring things. What is one of the biggest things that you had to prepare yourself, to become a new husband, to a new wife?
So I think communication was a big deal, because I'm very analytical,
Okay.
So I like to think before I talk.
Okay.
And if it doesn't make sense in my head, then I don't want to say it. So
that's the problem with females.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
as you can see,
I mean, like, say something.
yeah, you know, she
you ain't saying a word.
Yeah.
You just gonna ignore me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So she want all of my mind on the platter.
I do.
And I'm like, you know, everything you think don't need to be said.
Well, true. Sound like our mamas now.
And so, you know, so I'm very analytical in that way in my communication. So, you know, we were talking, you know, the other night about, you know, arguments we have.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my thing is one of the things I've always done, and I was a loner. So I was never the club type. I was never the going out, being around. I was never that type. Yeah. So I was always by myself, and I was fine being by myself. And so, you know, my thing is when we have arguments or disagreements, you know, we'll get to a place where I say, okay, there's no resolution in this right now. So I'll just be quiet. And after we go back and forth, going in the same circles, asking the same questions, getting the same answers, I was like, there's no...
I'm not saying anything now, I'm done. That's what he does. I'm done.
There's no way. Instead of saying, you know, hey, let's revisit this later, you know, I just kind of, you know, okay, let's be quiet for now. And then it's never going to be
never quiet.
No.
Because, you know, I have to resolve it. I'm a resolver. I like a solution. I mean, we need a solution to the problem.
Yeah. So communications is one of the things I had to really deal with. And again, in my reflection, my communication was, and I saw it, I knew it was a deal, you know, so I had to get to a place. I'm like, you know what? You need to get your communication better. And I practice on my kids, so that's just, you know, have good practice.
Well, let's talk about the connection. Let's talk about you guys coming together, because you guys, if I recall from the story, from your article, y'all worked together for years before y'all even. I don't know if you even knew each other or really connected with one another, but before you even came together, kind of tell us a little bit about your story. Everybody loves a good love story.
So of course we work together. So of course he's in IT. So he has to talk to everyone, you know, with their laptops, you know, what have you.
A person who not real good with communication.
But what's crazy,
is a loner.
But what's crazy is because he's like, hey, how you doing? Like he's so, you know, he's out for work. Yeah, he turned it on for work. But you know, so I'm like, oh my gosh, So of course, because of my background, I'm like, okay, is he like that, or is he just like over friendly, or is it just the females, like, you know? But I really wasn't paying attention at work. You know, I don't want to talk to nobody at work. Who wants someone at work? Yeah. I didn't. I've had that before, and I'm like, I would never do that again. I will not date anyone for my job. But I mean, I thought he was handsome, but I just did not. You know, I'm like, you know, I wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah.
So he would come by my desk and we would speak and we would have a conversation. And I'm like, he's pretty level-headed, you know, and he smelled good. he was wearing that cologne thick. I was like, what is that? Like, oh, he smelled good. He looked good. Okay. Chocolate. Chocolate man. So I'm like, you know, he's a handsome man, but you know. So anyway, long story short, you know, we was talking, and then one day out the blue. Now, mind you, you know, I'm like I said, I'm in my word. I am talking to God. And one day out the blue, he comes to my desk and he's like, hey, how you doing? Just a normal conversation like we normally do. He passes by. And mind you, we haven't talked on the phone. It was just a conversation at work. And he goes by and he was helping someone else with their, you know, laptop or something. And I'm sitting up here and I'm typing. And then all of a sudden, I looked over to my right and I said, that's my husband? Father God knows that's what happened. And I'm like, tripping. I'm like, what is this? I don't even know that man. I mean, we knew of each other. But there was never any conversation outside of work.
Wow.
So it was just like, where'd that come from? What's going on? So I just, I kept working. And so then later on, we saw each other at the holiday party, and this kid, we had, they could bring kids, and this kid runs up to him, and just how he was just so open to the child running up to him, and he grabbed him up, and I'm like, I think at that moment, I fell in love.
Oh,
because I'm a sucker for kids, and so when I saw that connection, I was just like, oh my God, like, look at this, and I think that moment is when I fell for him. He didn't know.
When was the moment for you, or how did you know? Because you weren't looking to get remarried.
No, yeah.
Oh, let him tell you about what he told me though.
Yeah, so I was at her desk talking one day, and again, it was just friendship at that point. It wasn't really, and so out of the blue, she just asked me, "Hey, do you think you'll ever get married again?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good."
That's exactly.
That's
exactly what he said.
That's what and in the moment, I meant it. I was,
wow.
I just wanted to be honest and upfront. Nah, I'm good. And so she was like, "Yeah," and it was like I was didn't exist. It was like, poof, I was gone.
He out.
I was gone.
I apparently didn't hear what I thought I heard.
Yeah.
He out.
And so, it was really interesting because I think at that moment, after I went back upstairs and I was like, what did I say? I know I ain't just tell that girl I wasn't interested in marriage. Well, it's out there now, And I think in that moment, I think that God started revealing to me at that moment that even me questioning, me telling her I want married, because I told a lot of people, I don't want to get married no more. A lot of women, no, and felt it and was okay with it. But it was at that moment I started thinking about it. I was like, man, why did I tell her that? And so that was my open up. Like, you know what? Is there something?
Wow. Am I feeling something here?
Is that a heart?
Wow. And it's so interesting because all of this happened and you guys got engaged and you started dating and then you got engaged and you even got married during COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
During COVID.
Yeah.
So, and I think y'all had to shelter in place for a period of time to get to know each other. And I mean, just the whole, in such a time when the world is in devastation, God is fulfilling this promise to you.
And that's what I said. I'm like, God, wow. But everything was shutting down. It's just like God brought him to me. And it's like, our first date was December 31st, 2019.
That's right.
That was our first date.
At Miko Center.
Okay, well, go with the details.
It's just, and so we had our date. I left, went over a friend's house, and we brought in the new year. And then from then on, we talked on the phone for hours.
Yeah.
Mostly him.
Yeah, because you did say in the article that you begin to really listen to him.
Yeah.
And you just let him talk and he would just tell you things and you were listening. And it wasn't a strain for you to listen.
No,
and you heard him. That was the thing that was different about your relationship from your point of view with this one as opposed to all the rest. It wasn't a strain. You heard what he said. What was it for you?
That it was exactly it.
That she was listening.
That she was hearing me.
Wow.
Yeah, and that people can sit there and just kind of he's talking, and then go over their head, and after the conversation, it's like whatever. But you can tell she was actually listening. I shared a lot of things with her, but she was listening, and these things would come back. She'd come back, and we talk about some other things, and then she shared some things with me, and I'm like, wow, there's more of a commonality between us both. And the life stuff we went through, and you see, like, okay, it ain't just me out here, going through this and climbing. But that's a great analogy. We were literally climbing, and the goal was up here, and we both was going toward the same goal.
Yes, and I know you saying Vida was saying in her article that it was so easy.
Mm-hmm.
It was so easy. It wasn't a strain trying to make things happen, and that was one of the indications that you knew that this was different.
Yes.
This was something totally different. It was easy.
It was so easy. Our communication, we laughed. Of course, we talked about which I really love. We sat and talked about the Bible. We talked about so many things. Just everything was just like our levels. Like we were just able to communicate about every single thing. And it just one particular subject. We were able to talk about anything and everything, and I just never felt so comfortable talking to someone about myself. Yeah. Because at that point in time, I was true to myself. So I wasn't ashamed. Yeah. And it was just easy for me to say, hey, this is who I am. Yeah. I've always been embarrassed about, myself. And so I wasn't able to just really open up, but I was just able to just open up, and he heard me and he respected it, and it was just easy. Yeah. It was just easy.
I think that's absolutely.
It was too easy.
Absolutely. And so what kind of conversations are you having with God at this time? Like,
of course, and we talked about this last night. I said that it was so perfect. It was so perfect where I'm like, something got to be wrong. This can't be right. Yeah. Because you know how you go through trauma in your life, you go through so many disappointments, and it's like, okay, God, I know you said you was gonna bring me somebody, but
it's too good
for me. I thought it was too good for me. Yeah. Like, do I deserve? Like, really? Yeah. Is this really him? So then, of course, I'm like, who are you? What you hiding? I'm like, are you real? Like, come on. And even my dad was like, he sounds too perfect now. Something got to be wrong with him, and I'm just like, I know. So, and then that's, I'm like, okay, guys, like, hey, look, I'm answering all everything that you asked me. Because I was very specific. I was like, God, I want a man of God. I want this. I was very, very specific in what I wanted. And baby checked everything, almost all of them out. Almost everything.
So let's fast forward, because you guys have been married, or I think this year is going to be
our 2-year anniversary in November.
Let me ask you this: having been in this for 2 years now, what expectations did you have before marriage? That have, and either one of you can answer, or both of you can answer. What type of expectations did you have before marriage that have changed now that you were married? Because Vita, this is your first marriage, and Alvin, this is your second, to a whole new different person. Everything about it is different. But what type of expectations did you have that have changed?
Not to have expectations. Yeah, I did have this. I had certain expectations that I wanted in a person. Oh, I want him to do this or do that. And if you really love and respect a person and trust them, you can't have too many expectations, because we all gonna fail at one point. And then, of course, we gonna only hurt our own selves by having that expectation. You're gonna realize, okay, I had this expectation of you. That's not what it is, and so you only hurt your own self.
So you're saying basically putting a person in a box. Right. Like you need to fit in these parameters.
Right, and that's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair because I'm not perfect. Yeah. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna do things that he don't like. So why should I have that expectation on him? It's not fair. Yeah. It's not fair.
Okay.
Yeah, mine was, I was operating, one of the things God was dealing with me about before, prior to meeting her, was operating in forgiveness. So I had already started my road of forgiving people, and also not condemning people. So it was easy for me, and I imagine easy for her, when she was telling me her story and telling me things was going on, and there was no condemnation, because my thing is, God done brought you already to where you are now. And so it was kind of, I had started, forgiveness was my thing, so I had already started that path and getting to that place.
Well, and I love the way you just segued that into a question that I wanted to ask. Because you talked about you didn't go into detail, but we all have trauma. Yeah. We all have relationship issues and different things. Let me tell it, every last one of us suffer from PTSD in some form or fashion, because life happens. Right. So And it doesn't magically go away.
Oh,
We're
right.
constantly on a journey healing from the things that have happened in our life. And so I'm a big believer in being able to identify triggers and addressing trauma and stuff as it comes up, because sometimes we can bring a past relationship into our current relationship.
Right.
So how do you, if you guys have ran across this, which I'm certain you have, how do you handle past traumas when they come up now?
Oh, wow. You answer that, babe.
Great point.
Yeah, so my thing is, again, being the husband, the man, if you will, in the relationship. I think that one of our big thing was she didn't want me comparing her, or even having conversations about my ex. Whether it was in, I mean, whether it was in.
Well, the problem that we had is that because he was in his relationship so long with his ex, he would talk about, their family. And so that was a big thing. And so like when we would have arguments or anything, I didn't want him to, look at me as, okay, she's doing the same thing my ex-wife did.
Yes.
I didn't want that comparison. Like that was my big fear. And so that was something that we had to talk about, how I felt about it, how he felt about it. We really had to communicate and say, okay, well, we're going to respect each other and have boundaries. So I think that was our thing.
And that was yours. I just think that coming from a place, I understand everything has a root cause. And so it comes, these things are just symptoms of whatever the root is.
Yeah.
So trying to get to a place where I'm understanding the root of why she feels this way. And so that is, I'm saying, okay, she probably don't want to hear that. And she probably don't want to, okay, but where is it coming from? What past hurt, is bringing this. And, if I can, okay, God, show me what it is where I can help and assist in the healing of it. Yeah.
He does. He listens to me, and I thank God that I have someone who listens to me. Although, and then he will say, "Well, I don't agree," and I'm like, "Well, I want you to agree." But you have to agree to disagree and have that, like I said, that respect for one another. But he does listen, and he does say, I want to work on myself. I mean, we're working on ourselves individually.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to understand everything that he went through. And sometimes, how you can say something to someone and then I have to, and I do, I'll go back and I think about it and I'm like, that was wrong. So I'm like, you have to realize, hey, I know his story. Let me go back and say, I apologize. I know where you're coming from. So I do apologize. So we apologize to one another. Yeah, we do.
So on a typical day, what does love look like for you? Well, I can tell you she giggly about it, okay? She been giggly. And I love it.
That's one of the characteristics I love about her. Her jovial. She's very, goofy like me. And so, I really do love that about her. And, it really does something for my confidence in the marriage when I make her smile and make her laugh. So that's on a daily basis. That's what we try to do. Laugh about something, smile about something, and and try to keep things in a positive space and everything not be so serious.
Right. Yeah. And do we definitely kiss every day? Yeah. Every day. Yeah. We make sure we kiss each other.
And the love yous and the touch. And
right. Yeah, that's his love language.
Yeah.
I'm touching his love language. Well, okay.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you. I mean, it's just so cute. I was just so, and I love God. I love God, and I love being able to see the promise of God, and I love that he told you what he was gonna do before he did what he did, and you being able to stand on that. Right. You know what I'm saying? And being able to see it, because God will do things in our life sometimes, and we'll ignore it. And he'll be doing it and doing it and doing it, and we're just ignoring it and abusing it. But you heard the promise, you believe the promise, and you see the promise, and now you're living the promise.
Thank you,
I love it. I'm so happy for the both of you. Well, as we wrap up, I want to just ask you both, Vida, what wisdom would you give to a single woman right now waiting on her forever story?
Oh, wow. What wisdom would I give? I gotta think on that. I think everybody has their own journeys, but I will say, do not force or put someone. Don't try to fill a void. Don't try to fill a void just to have someone in your life or have a companion. Make sure that they bring in, or y'all both, have abundance. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't. The word settle. Mm-hmm. That's what. Don't try to fill a void. We have to love yourself first. Mm-hmm. Like yourself first. Be happy with your loneliness. Be happy with your singleness.
Wow.
Enjoy yourself. Get out there and just enjoy your own self. And then before you know it, just like, he came. I wasn't expecting him. When he came, I'm like, okay, Lord, I know I got a lot of making up to do. This may take some years when you finally bring me somebody, but he came sooner than I expected. And when you at least expect it. So I guess my whole thing is don't sit there and look. Don't seek and look. Enjoy yourself. Love yourself. Have your relationship with God. Talk to God. Yeah. Have that relationship and just love yourself first. And then you'll be able to love somebody else.
And you did say that. Say that. Alvin, what about you? What advice would you give to a single man looking to start over and do it right?
Do it right. First of all, you have to know yourself as a young man and know God as a young man. And basically start developing goals that you set before you meet somebody. So you would already have things that you've accomplished already before you get with this person or before you start pursuing. And I think along the same lines, love yourself first. And for me, it's the biggest. In the Bible, it always repeats, man, love thy wife. And so, I think for young men, because they don't, a lot of men don't understand how big our charge is in marriage and the responsibility that we have in marriage. It's way bigger than it is for women. And so we have to make sure all of our stuff is lined up and ready, and our forgiveness. And she ain't gonna say what you want. She ain't gonna do what you want. And so you have to have some things built up in you, the confidence and understanding, where God is trying to take you.
Wow.
Purpose.
Wow. I thank you both for joining us today. I thank you for your wisdom. I thank you for your transparency. I just so appreciate y'all. And we're gonna continue these conversations, especially Alvin. Just we focus so much here at NexLevel on the woman, and we don't, as Vida has just sitting here listening to her and reminding me, we don't listen enough to the man. And I think women need to know that, and we need to be able to hear what a man is saying. And so we're gonna bring you back so you can talk a little bit more too. I just want to thank you, and I hope you guys have really enjoyed today's episode. And as a reminder that the promises of God, as the Bible says, are yea and nay, are always, are forever and amen. And if we will get to a point in our life where we will trust him, where we will trust him to do what he says that he will do, and we do our part, God will never leave us. He will never, ever, ever leave us or forsake us. And this is one story that is a reminder that you can stand on the promise and the love of God and get your forever love. Thanks for joining us.
I feel a wave coming.